On the day my life collapsed, I was only 15. My father, the man who should have protected me, called me a whore and beat me right in the street. Why? Because the 62-year-old man I was forced to marry had returned me, claiming I wasn't pure. It was a lie, but the whole town believed him a rich and powerful man. I spent the next 10 years as an outcast, believing I was trash. Until one day, a secret was revealed. A secret that showed the lie wasn't to cover my sin, but to hide his own impotence and sick shame. Today, I'm 80 years old. People often say, time heals all wounds. They're wrong. Time doesn't heal. Justice heals. And my story is living proof that even when justice comes late, it still has the power to destroy the one who dealt the injustice. I'm going to tell you the whole truth, and it will make you furious. But before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories of the truth being exposed. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. Now, sit down. It all started on the day I was sold. My name is Savannah, and as I mentioned, I live here in Bloomfield, in a small house I bought myself. I have a backyard with some plants that I take care of every day. The house isn't big, it isn't fancy, but it's mine. Nobody gave it to me. Nobody lent it to me. I earned it with my own sweat, with my own hands. And nobody can take that from me, not even if I live another 100 years. But it wasn't always like this. For a long time, I didn't even have a proper place to sleep. I ate leftovers, slept in borrowed rooms, and worked until my hands bled. There was a time when I woke up every day thinking, why am I still alive? What for? Nobody wants me. Nobody believes me. Nobody looks at my face. Why continue? It was like that for many years. 10 years to be more exact. 10 years living as if I were dirty, as if I had done something terrible. And you know what my crime was? None. I didn't do anything. Nothing at all. But a man lied, and everyone believed him because he was rich, important, powerful, and I was nobody. A poor girl, without a voice, without value. I married at 15 years old, not because I wanted to, not because I was in love. I married because my father decided. The man was Mr. Harold Winters. He was 62 years old at the time. I barely knew him. I only knew that everyone respected him, that he ran the town, that he had land, houses, money. My father owed him money, a lot of cash, and Mr. Winters offered, marry the girl, and the debt ends. My father accepted immediately. He didn't ask if I wanted to, didn't ask if I was afraid, just said, you're going to marry. And I, like a good obedient girl of that era, lowered my head and accepted. I was a virgin, pure, had never touched any man. Everyone knew it. My mother knew it. My father knew it. I was going to that marriage the way it was expected, whole, clean, without blemish. The morning after the wedding, Mr. Winters took me back to my parents' house. He stopped the wagon right in front of the house, in the street, where everyone could see, and shouted loudly, very loudly, this girl is not a virgin. You deceived me. I was in shock. I couldn't even speak properly. I tried to say it was a lie, that I was pure, that I had never been with anyone, but nobody listened to me. My father went white first, then red. He pulled me from the wagon, threw me on the dirt ground. The neighbor women were already looking from the window. The children stopped to watch. My father raised his hand and hit me. He hit me in front of everyone. He shouted that I was a prostitute, that I had dishonored the family, that I had ruined him. You can't understand it, can you? Why a father would believe an outsider over his own blood. Power, you see. When a rich man holds your life and your debt in his hands, his word weighs more than the truth. My father chose to save himself, and he sacrificed me. My mother, Linda, cried in the corner, but did nothing. She didn't defend me. The pain of my mother's silence, it was colder than my father's slap. Don't think she didn't love me. She did. But her fear of her husband, fear of this whole town, it grew bigger than her love. And I learned a bitter lesson that day. Silence is also a choice. He expelled me right there, said I was no longer his daughter. I grabbed a bundle of clothes that my mother put together trembling and left walking. I didn't know where to go. I had nobody. Mr. Winters had already left, had dropped the bomb and disappeared. And I was left there at 15 years old, without a house, without family, without a name, carrying a guilt that wasn't mine. But I didn't know that yet. I would only discover the truth 10 years later, when a dying old woman called me and told me what really happened that night. And when I found out, my life turned upside down, because the lie wasn't mine, it was his. And he destroyed everything to protect his own secret. But I need you to understand where I came from, because nothing in my life happened by chance. I didn't marry that old man because my father was evil. No, he was desperate, and desperate men do things they shouldn't. He sold me to pay a debt. Simple as that. And to understand this, I need to go back a little in time. I was born and grew up here in Bloomfield itself. My family was poor, very poor. My father, Carl, had a small piece of land where he tried to farm, but the land was bad, dry, tired, never gave a good harvest. We spent the whole year working and in the end had almost nothing. I had 4 younger siblings. We ate thin bean soup, cornbread, sometimes an egg. Meat was a luxury, only at celebrations. One year the harvest was terrible. I don't even know if it was lack of rain, plague, or just bad luck. The fact is, my father was left with nothing. He didn't have money to buy seed for the next year. He didn't have money to pay what he owed at the general store, didn't even have money for food. He became desperate. We were truly starving. It wasn't that hunger of today there's no meat, it was hunger of today there's nothing. That's when he went to ask for a loan from Mr. Winters. Everyone knew Mr. Winters. He was the richest man in Bloomfield, owner of several lands, several houses. When he passed on the street, everyone lowered their heads, tipped their hats, said, "Good morning, Mr. Winters." He was one of those who commanded and everyone obeyed. Powerful, important. And my father went to knock on his door begging for charity. Mr. Winters lent money, but charged high interest, very high. My father signed the papers without even reading properly, because it was that, or watch the family die of hunger. He took the money, bought seed, bought food, paid small debts, thought he would be able to plant, harvest, sell, and pay Mr. Winters. But it didn't work out. The land continued bad. The harvest again was small, and the debt kept growing, growing. I remember seeing my father sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, sweating cold. My mother cried hidden in the kitchen. I was about 8, 9 years old. I didn't understand exactly, but I felt the fear in the air. My siblings asked, "Mom, why is Dad like this?" She didn't answer, just told us to be quiet. Mr. Winters sent messages demanding payment. First it was polite, then it was firm, then it was threats. My father tried everything. He sold a cow we had, sold some chickens, sold tools, but it wasn't enough. The debt was too big, and Mr. Winters wasn't a man to forgive. He wanted his money, and if there wasn't money, he would take the land, would take everything. My father would be left with nothing, without land, without a house, without a way to support the family. We would end up under a bridge. That's when Mr. Winters made a proposal. I don't know exactly how that conversation went, because I was a child and wasn't there. But later I pieced it together. Mr. Winters was a widower, had no children, lived alone in that huge mansion, and he had looked at me. I was Carl's oldest daughter. I was pretty, they said. Young, healthy, obedient. And Mr. Winters wanted a young wife. He offered, "When the girl turns 15, marry her to me, and the debt disappears. Everyone wins. You're free. I get a wife." My father accepted. He didn't ask me, didn't ask my mother, just accepted. And that's how my fate was decided. I was 8 years old when the debt started, and at 15 I was going to pay it with my body, with my life. I didn't know any of this yet. I was a child, played in the yard, helped my mother at home, didn't think about marriage. But time passed, and when I turned 15, Mr. Winters appeared. He arrived at our house on a hot, sunny day, got down from the wagon, entered without asking permission, looked at me and said to my father, "It's time." And that's when I found out I was going to marry. When my father told me I was going to marry, I didn't believe it. I thought it was a lie, that he was joking, but he wasn't. He sat down with me and my mother in the living room and spoke seriously. "Savannah, you're going to marry Mr. Winters. It's decided, no discussion." I looked at my mother, expecting her to say something that would protect me, but she just lowered her head and stayed quiet. I tried to ask why. Why me? Why so young? Why with him who was old, who I barely knew? My father got angry. He said I didn't have to ask anything, that it was a daughter's duty to obey, that he was my father and knew what was best for me, that Mr. Winters was a good man, rich, respected, that I would have a good life, big house, plenty of food, that I should be grateful, but I didn't want to be grateful. I was afraid. Afraid of Mr. Winters, who I barely knew. Afraid of leaving home, afraid of becoming an old man's wife. I still felt like a child, played with the girls from the street, helped my mother wash clothes at the creek. Marriage was for grown-ups, and I didn't feel grown-up, but being afraid didn't help. It was already decided. Mr. Winters would pick me up the following week. My mother tried to prepare me. She taught me some things about being a wife, about obeying your husband, about not contradicting, but she couldn't look in my eyes while she spoke. I saw that she felt sorry for me. Once, when we were alone, she held my hand and said quietly, "Forgive us, my daughter. We have no choice. I didn't understand at the time. I only understood years later that the marriage was to pay the debt." The wedding day came too quickly. It was all simple at the small church in Bloomfield. I wore a white dress borrowed from a neighbor. My mother combed my hair, put some flowers. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. I looked like someone else, someone I didn't want to be. Mr. Winters appeared in a dark suit, white hair combed, big hard hands. He didn't smile at me, didn't even look properly. At church, it was all fast. The priest said some things I didn't hear properly. My heart was beating so hard it felt like it would come out of my chest. Mr. Winters said yes with a firm voice. I said yes with a trembling voice. And done. I was married. My father sighed with relief, as if a weight had come off his back. My mother cried. But I don't know if it was from sadness or relief. My siblings didn't even understand what was happening. The party was at Mr. Winters' mansion. There was plenty of food, drink, important people from town. Everyone laughed, talked loudly, ate freely. My father, for the first time in years, seemed happy. He drank whiskey, laughed loudly, slapped other men on the back. The debt was over. He was free, and I was the price he paid for that freedom. But he didn't think about that, or if he did, he didn't care. I stayed in a corner of the party quietly. I didn't know anyone. The women looked at me with pity or envy, I don't know. The men didn't look at me, only at Mr. Winters laughing, making jokes I didn't understand. There was a young guy, must have been about 17, who was helping serve people. He looked at me, and I saw pity in his look. Pure pity. That look stayed stored in my head. When it got dark and the guests left, Mr. Winters took me to the bedroom. A huge bedroom, big bed, smell of mold, and old things. He locked the door. I stood in the middle of the room, not knowing what to do. He looked at me as if evaluating merchandise. He said, "Take off that dress." I trembled so much I could barely move my fingers, but I obeyed, because that's what I had learned my whole life. To obey. What happened that night I won't tell in detail. Not because it's a secret, but because it hurts too much to relive. What I can say is this. He tried. He tried several times, drank whiskey, tried again, got nervous, sweating, angry with himself and couldn't. Nothing happened. I didn't understand at the time what was wrong. I was a girl. I didn't know anything. I just saw that he was getting more and more irritated. At dawn, he left the room and left me alone. And I stayed there confused, relieved, but very afraid of what would come next. Early in the morning, before the sun rose properly, Mr. Winters entered the room already dressed. I was still lying down, wrapped in the sheet, confused about everything that had happened. He didn't look at me, just said with a dry voice, "Get up, gather your things." I sat on the bed, My heart raced. I asked what had happened, if I had done something wrong. He turned his face and spat the words. "You deceived me." "Deceived how? Deceived in what?" He pulled an old suitcase from under the bed, threw it on the floor. "Put your clothes in there and come down. I'm taking you back." I started to tremble. "Back? Back where?" "To your parents' house." "Why?" I tried to ask again, but he raised his hand. Not to hit, just to tell me to shut up. I said to gather your things. "Do what I'm telling you." I packed the bundle with hands trembling so much I could barely fold the clothes. There was almost nothing, just the dress I had arrived in, some old changes of clothes. I went down the stairs behind him. The huge house was silent. The old maid was in the kitchen and looked away when I passed. Mr. Winters was already in the wagon waiting. I got in. He took the reins and left without saying anything. I didn't know what to think, what to feel. I just knew something very bad was coming. The wagon swayed on the dirt road. The sun was starting to heat up. I wanted to ask, wanted to understand, but I was afraid. He had a closed face, a tight jaw. It seemed like he would explode at any moment. I tried to speak quietly. "Mr. Winters, I don't know what I did, but if you explain to me," he cut me off. "Shut up, you know very well what you did. And now everyone will know too." When we arrived near my parents' house, I saw there were people on the street. Women sweeping the sidewalk, men leaving for work, children playing. The wagon stopped right in front of the house. "Mr. Winters got down, pulled me by the arm hard. My father was coming out, saw us and went white. "Mr. Winters, what?" Mr. Winters didn't let him finish. He shouted loudly, very loudly, for everyone to hear. "Carl, you deceived me. This girl is not a virgin." The world stopped. The neighbor women dropped their brooms. The men stopped in the middle of the street. The children went quiet. Everyone looking. My father turned red. The veins in his neck bulged. "What do you mean?" Mr. Winters continued, his voice even louder. "The girl is not pure. Someone already had her before. You sold me damaged goods. I don't accept this. I'm returning her." He let me go with force. I almost fell, and the debt comes back. "You owe me everything again." I wanted to scream, wanted to say it was a lie, but my voice wouldn't come out. I tried to speak to my father, say it wasn't true, that I was a virgin, that I had never touched any man, but he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Mr. Winters, his face red with shame and anger. The neighbor women were already whispering. Mrs. Johnson covered her mouth with her hand. Mr. Thompson shook his head. And my father looked at me with a hatred I had never seen before. He came at me. I tried to back up, but there was no time. His hand came hard, hit my face. I fell on my knees in the dirt. "Whore! Slut!" he shouted, spat the words. "You ruined this family. You shamed me." I tried to get up, tried to protect myself. My mother ran out of the house crying, but didn't have the courage to hold his arm. She just cried, her hands on her face, moaning, "My God, my God." Mr. Winters had already gotten back in the wagon. He didn't look back. He gave a slap on the reins and left. He left the bomb there exploding. My father kept shouting, "You're a disgrace. You're no longer my daughter. Get out of here. Get out of my sight." I tried to speak. My mouth was bleeding. "Dad, I swear that." He didn't want to hear. He spat on the ground near me. "I don't have a lying daughter. Get your things and leave now." My mother gathered a bundle of clothes, her hands trembling. She couldn't look at me, just cried quietly, putting some old changes in the cloth. My siblings were at the door, their eyes wide, afraid. The little one, who was 5 years old, cried without understanding. My father yelled at her, "Go inside. Don't look at that one." They ran inside. My mother handed me the bundle. She whispered quickly, "Go with God, daughter," and went inside too. The door slammed. I stood there in the street, with the bundle in my hand, my face burning, my mouth bleeding. The neighbor women were still looking. Nobody came to help me. Nobody said anything. They just looked, judged, turned their backs. I started walking without knowing where. My legs trembled, but I walked. And in my head, just one thing hammered. How? How did everything turn upside down in one night? I was innocent, I was. But nobody believed me. I walked aimlessly for hours. The sun rose, heated up, burned. I passed by houses and saw people looking at me from the window. Some closed the window when I got close. Others kept looking, without shame, judging. I heard the whispers. "That's her, the girl Mr. Winters returned." What a shame, my God. So young and already lost. Each word was a stab. I wanted to disappear, turn to dust, vanish. But the deepest cut wasn't the rejection. It was the doubt. After 2 years, then 3, the human mind starts to break. The world tells you the same story every day. You are dirty. You are a liar. After a while, a small, treacherous voice in the back of your own head starts to whisper, "Are they right? Did I do something wrong and forget? Am I just inherently worthless?" That was his true crime. Mr. Winters didn't just steal my name in the town. He tried to steal my own truth from myself. I wasn't just fighting the town. I was fighting to hold on to my own sanity, to the one single fact I knew. I was innocent. That was his real crime, the worst one. He didn't just take my name, he tried to steal my truth from me. When the entire world tells you you're filth, a part of you starts to believe it, holding on to who you are when you're all alone. That is the hardest war you will ever fight. I tried to go to a distant aunt's house, my mother's sister. I knocked on the door. She opened, saw me, frowned. "Savannah, what do you want here?" I explained with a failing voice that my father had expelled me, that I had nowhere to go. She shook her head. "I can't help you, girl. Your reputation has already run through the whole town. If I take you in here, they'll talk bad about me too. I have my daughters to protect. Sorry, but I can't." And she closed the door. I went to the house of a neighbor who was always friends with my mother, Mrs. Roberts. She opened the door, but didn't invite me in. She stood there at the threshold, arms crossed. "Savannah, I heard what happened. Is it true?" I tried to explain that no, that it was a lie, that Mr. Winters had lied. She cut me off. "Girl, a man like Mr. Winters doesn't lie. He doesn't need to. If he said you're no good, it's because you're no good. Go away from here. I don't want trouble at my door. You see, scandal is like a sickness, a plague, and nobody wants to stand too close to the sick, even when they know you're innocent. The fear of catching it, it's stronger than compassion." Every door I knocked on, the answer was the same. "No, I can't help you. No, I don't want problems. No, my family can't mix with people like you. People like you." As if I were dirty, contaminated, dangerous. I was 15 years old, had been expelled from home just hours ago, and was already marked forever. Nobody would give me a chance. Nobody would believe me, because his word was worth more than mine. I ended up sleeping in a corner of an abandoned house on the edge of town. It had a leaky roof, dirt floor, smell of dead animal, but it was better than the open street. I lay on the cold ground with the bundle as a pillow. I couldn't sleep properly. Every noise scared me. I was afraid someone would come in, that some man would think that if I was already lost anyway, he could do what he wanted with me. I stayed awake all night, trembling with cold and fear. The next day, I woke up hungry, really hungry. I hadn't eaten anything since the previous morning. I went to Mr. Anderson's general store, the same one where my father bought on credit. I asked for a loaf of bread, said I'd pay later. He laughed in my face. "Pay with what, girl? You have nothing, and I don't sell on credit to those who are no good. Get out of here before I call someone." I left with my head down, my stomach rumbling. I went to the creek where the women washed clothes. I thought maybe some of them would give me a piece of bread, some fruit, anything. I got close. They stopped washing and looked at me. Mrs. Davis, who I had known since I was little, spoke loudly. "What do you want here?" I asked for help, said I was hungry. She laughed, but it was a mean laugh. "Hungry? Go work, girl." "Oh, I forgot. Nobody will hire you now. A dirty woman doesn't work in an honest family's house. The others laughed too. A younger one shouted, "Go back to Mr. Winters, go on, or go find another rich old man who'll accept you." They laughed more. I left there running, tears streaming. It wasn't just rejection, it was cruelty, pleasure in seeing me suffer, pleasure in crushing someone who was already on the ground. And I began to understand. It wasn't going to be easy, it wasn't going to be quick. That mark would follow me for a long, long time. In the afternoon, I went back to the abandoned house, sat on the floor and cried. I cried everything I had held in. I cried from anger, from pain, from despair. I had nobody. I had no food, had no future. And worse, I knew I was innocent. But nobody believed. How was I going to live like this? How was I going to survive carrying a lie I couldn't prove was a lie? The truth was locked inside me, screaming, but nobody heard. I went 3 days without eating properly. I picked fruit in the woods, drank water from the creek, lost weight, got weak. Until a woman, Mrs. Jenkins, saw me sitting on the side of the road. She stopped, looked at me. "You're Carl's girl?" I nodded. She sighed. "Look, I don't know what happened and I won't ask, but I need someone to wash clothes. I pay little, but I pay. Do you want?" I looked at her as if she were salvation. She was, at least for now. I started working for Mrs. Jenkins the next day. She showed me the work, wash her clothes and her daughter's, a mountain of fabric that never ended. The payment was miserable. It wasn't even enough to buy food properly, but it was better than nothing. She let me sleep in a little room at the back of her house, a hole without a window, with an old bed that sank in the middle, but it had a roof and was mine. For now, the work was hard. I took the clothes to the creek early in the morning, when the sun hadn't warmed up yet. I scrubbed with cheap soap that burned my hands, beat on the rock until my arms hurt, wrung until my fingers were red and swollen, then hung on a makeshift clothesline at the water's edge. Came back in the afternoon to get it. Ironed with a coal iron that burned if I didn't pay attention, and at the end of the month received a few coins that barely were enough for anything. Over time, other women started hiring me too, not because they liked me, but because I charged cheap and didn't complain. I was the washerwoman nobody needed to respect. They could order around, curse, pay badly, and I accepted because I had no choice. I was the returned girl, the one who was no good. Nobody called me Savannah anymore. They called me that one there, or didn't call me at all, just left the bundle of dirty clothes at the creek and picked up clean at the end of the day. I lived like this. Woke up before the sun, worked all day, came back at night dead, tired, ate what I could, cornmeal with water, sometimes an egg, rarely a piece of meat. I lost so much weight that my clothes became loose. My skin got burned from the sun, full of spots. My hands became calloused, with cuts that didn't heal properly, because I put them in water with soap every day. I was 16, 17 years old, but looked like I was 30. One day I was washing clothes at the creek and saw my mother. She had gone to wash clothes too with other women. Our eyes met. I saw that she wanted to say something, take a step in my direction, but the other women were looking and she didn't have the courage. She lowered her head and continued washing her clothes. I understood. She was ashamed of me, or afraid of what they would say if she greeted me. I was her daughter, but she couldn't acknowledge me in public. Not everyone was cruel, but kindness was rare and dangerous. I remember one day, I was leaving the general store. Mr. Anderson had just yelled at me for being too slow to get out of the way for a real customer. I dropped a small bag of cornmeal, and it split open in the dust. I just knelt there, too tired to even cry, trying to scoop the meal back. A shadow fell over me. It was Tyler Matthews. He didn't say a word. He didn't look at me with pity or disgust. He just knelt, bought a new, full bag from the store, placed it in my hands, and said, "You drop this." He didn't wait for a thank you. He just nodded and walked away. It was a 5-second interaction, but it was the first time in years a man had looked at me without wanting something or judging me. He treated me like I was just to a person. It was a cup of cold water in a desert. The years passed. I turned 18, 20, 22. No man approached me. No one looked at me with interest. I was rejected merchandise. Nobody wanted me. The girls my age married one by one. I saw the weddings, saw bellies growing, saw children being born and me there alone, washing other people's clothes, sleeping in a borrowed room, without future, without hope, just working to eat, eating to work. And each day that passed, the anger grew inside me. There was a day I got sick, high fever, body aching all over. I couldn't get up. I didn't go to work. Mrs. Jenkins knocked on the little room door angrily. "Savannah, the clothes are waiting. Get up." I tried to explain I was sick, that I couldn't even stand up. She huffed. "Sickness doesn't pay bills. If you don't work, you don't get paid. And if you don't get paid, you leave here." I dragged myself from the bed, went to the creek, even trembling with fever, because that was it. Either that or starve to death. There was another day I hadn't eaten anything for 2 days. My stomach hurt from being so empty. I was dizzy, weak. I asked for a piece of bread at the general store. Mr. Anderson said he only sold to those who paid on the spot. I didn't have money, was only going to receive at the end of the week. He told me to leave. I sat on the sidewalk and cried. A woman passing by threw a piece of old cornbread near me, as if I were a dog. I picked it up and ate anyway, because hunger has no pride. Around that time, my mother died. Someone told me. I don't remember who. She had gotten sick, coughing blood. It was quick. The funeral was on a weekday. I went, stayed at the back of the cemetery, far from everyone. My father was there, my siblings. They saw me, but didn't say anything. After everyone left, I approached the grave, knelt on the fresh earth, asked forgiveness from her for something I didn't even know what it was, because even knowing I was innocent, I felt guilty for everything, for existing. I found out later that my mother had left some things saved, some good clothes, some embroidered tablecloths, and a simple gold ring that was her grandmother's. Small inheritance, but it was something. I thought my father would give me at least the ring, some memory of her, but he sold it, sold everything and didn't give me anything. I was no longer his daughter, had no right to anything. That hurt more than I expected. It wasn't about the money, it was about the message. You don't exist. You're not part of this family. You were erased. And it was at that moment I understood I had lost everything, really. Everything. And maybe would never recover anything. I was already 23 years old when Mrs. Patricia Miller knocked on my little room door. It was mid-afternoon. I had just come back from the creek, my hands raw and bleeding into the wash pail. I opened the door and saw a woman I didn't know well. She entered without me inviting, sat on the edge of my rotten bed. "I brought food for you." She placed a cloth bundle on the bed. There was bread, bananas, a piece of cheese. I recoiled. My first thought was that this was a trick, a new way to humiliate me. I stared at the food, then at her, my voice hard. "What do you want?" She didn't flinch. "I want you to eat." "Nobody gives me anything for free," I spat. "Why?" She stared at me directly, her eyes holding not pity, but recognition. "Because I know what it's like to go hungry, and because I look at you, and I think you're telling the truth." Those words, telling the truth, they didn't hit me like a punch, they hit me like a stillness. The world stopped. For 10 years, my name had been liar, whore, trash. This strange woman, sitting on my filthy bed, just gave me back my name. I didn't trust her. I didn't trust kindness. Kindness was a weapon other people used. But as I looked at her, I realized I was starving. And not just for the bread. After 10 years of being treated like trash, this is the first time someone has seen her, not the lie. This single act of kindness from Patricia, this simple piece of bread, is the seed of a revolution. But is this new friend truly safe to trust in a town built on judgment? I sat next to her, couldn't speak. She continued, "My name is Patricia. I'm your mother's distant cousin, from the poor side of the family. When your mother died, I was the one who helped with the burial, because your father was too drunk. I saw you there at the cemetery alone, far from everyone, and I thought, this girl is carrying a weight that isn't hers. She paused, looked at her own hands. I know this weight. I've carried a similar one. She told me her story. When she was 18, a married man had forced her in a dark corner after a party. She screamed, but nobody heard or pretended they didn't hear. The next day, the man spread around town that she had tried to seduce him, that she was shameless. His wife believed him. The whole town believed him. And Patricia carried that mark for years. She lost suitors, lost friendships, lived on the margin, like me. But she, over time, managed to marry a good widower who believed her. But he had died a few years ago. Now she lived alone, washing clothes, too. Why are you telling me this? My voice came out hoarse. She held my hand. Her hands were calloused like mine, marks of someone who works hard, because when I look at you, I see myself 20 years ago. And because I know in the bottom of my soul that you didn't do anything. Powerful men lie easily, and we who have nothing pay the price. She squeezed my hand. You're not alone, Savannah. Not anymore. I broke down. I cried like a child. I cried 8 years of loneliness. I cried the anger, the pain, the despair. And Patricia held me, let me wet her shoulder with tears and snot. She didn't say, calm down, didn't say it will pass. She just stayed there firm, holding me. When I managed to stop, she cleaned my face with the hem of her dress. Now eat. You're too thin. And I ate everything. For the first time in years, food didn't taste like ashes, it tasted like hope. Patricia started showing up every week. She brought food when she could, brought conversation always. We washed clothes together at the creek. Sometimes the other women looked askance, whispered. But Patricia didn't care. She talked to me loudly, laughed at my lame jokes, treated me like a person, like an equal. And slowly, very slowly, I began remembering what it was like to be human, what it was like to have someone who looked in my eyes without disgust, without judgment, what it was like to have a friend. One day, she said something that changed everything. We were sitting at the edge of the creek, our feet in the cold water. Savannah, have you ever thought about going after the truth? I laughed bitterly. What truth? Nobody believes me. She shook her head. But you know you're innocent. So, something happened that night that he doesn't want anyone to know. A man doesn't invent a lie this big for nothing. He's hiding something, and if you find out what, you get your life back. That stayed in my head like a thorn. Was there something I could do? Was there a way to discover the truth? But how? Mr. Winters was powerful. I was nobody. Who would help me? Patricia saw my doubtful face. I don't know how, girl, but I know you can't live the rest of your life like this, carrying guilt for something you didn't do. There has to be a way. And when you find it, I'll be by your side. I swear to God. That night, lying in my dark little room, I thought about everything Patricia had said. For the first time in 10 years, something small started growing inside me. It wasn't hope yet. It was anger. Good anger. Anger that didn't make me want to give up. Anger that made me want to fight. Mr. Winters had taken everything from me. He had destroyed my life with a lie. And if I could prove it was a lie, he would pay. I didn't know how, but he would. This thought made me sleep better than I had slept in years. 2 years later, when I was 25, I heard that Mrs. Dorothy Watson, the oldest midwife in Bloomfield, was very sick. Everyone commented she wouldn't last long, and I remembered something. She was the midwife who attended rich people, including Mr. Winters. Did she know something? It was a shot in the dark, but I had nothing to lose. I talked to Patricia, she said. Go, try. The worst that can happen is she sends you away. I went to her house one afternoon. Her niece opened the door, looked suspicious. What do you want? I asked to speak with Mrs. Watson. The girl frowned. She's very ill, isn't receiving visitors, I insisted. Said it was important, that I needed to ask something. The niece huffed, but let me in. She took me to the back room. The smell of sickness was strong. Mrs. Watson was lying in a bed, so thin she looked like she would break, but her eyes were still alive. She looked at me and recognized me. Carl's girl. The voice came out weak, hoarse. I approached the bed. Mrs. Watson, I need to ask something about Mr. Winters. She got tense. I don't know anything, but I saw she was lying. I insisted. Please, it's been 10 years that I've carried a lie. 10 years that the whole town treats me like trash. If you know something, anything, I need to know. I beg you. She closed her eyes. Stayed silent so long I thought she had fallen asleep. But then she opened her eyes again. They were wet. Sit here, she pointed to the edge of the bed. I sat with my heart beating irregularly. She breathed deeply, making an effort. I'm going to die soon, and I don't want to die carrying this weight. She held my hand with her weak hand. That night, girl, he couldn't. The world stopped. What? She repeated with a trembling voice. Mr. Winters. He couldn't consummate the marriage. He tried. He tried a lot, but it didn't work. He became desperate. Drank more whiskey, tried again. Nothing. At dawn, almost morning, he sent for me. I went. He was white, sweating cold. He explained what had happened, asked for help. I said this was normal, that it happened with older men, especially when they drank too much and were nervous, that he just had to try another day calmly. But he didn't want to hear. She continued, the tears falling now. He said he couldn't let anyone know, that it would be his shame, that the whole town would laugh, that they would say he wasn't a man. Then he said, I'm going to return the girl. I'm going to say she wasn't a virgin. That way the blame falls on her, not on me. I couldn't breathe properly. Mrs. Watson continued, I tried to convince him not to do that, said it would destroy your life. He looked at me coldly and said, it's her or me, and I'm not going to destroy myself because of a poor girl. And there it is. The truth is finally out. It was never about her sin. It was about his shame, his impotence. Savannah finally has the proof she's needed all these years. But what good is a truth when the only person who can verify it is about to die? Her fight is far from over. I couldn't speak. The anger was so much I trembled. But along with the anger there was relief. Relief to know I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't done anything, that I was innocent indeed. Can you confirm this? Can you sign a paper? Can you tell someone? She shook her head weakly. I have no strength anymore, girl. I won't last even another week. And even if I wanted to, who would believe a dying old woman against Mr. Winters? He has money, power. I have nothing. Patricia, who had stayed waiting outside, came in. She had heard everything. Mrs. Watson, can you at least write something? A letter? A note? The old woman shook her head. My hand doesn't obey anymore. I can barely hold a spoon. Sorry, girls. I should have spoken before, years ago, but I was a coward, and now it's too late. She closed her eyes. Go away now. Let me die in peace. At least I took this weight off my conscience. We left the house. I was in shock. Patricia held me by the arm. You heard, Savannah? You heard the truth. It wasn't you. It was him. But I didn't feel victory. I felt despair because knowing the truth didn't change anything. Dorothy would die, wouldn't leave proof, and I would continue being the liar, would continue carrying that cross. It's not fair, Patricia. It's not fair, I shouted. I punched the wall of a house. My hand hurt, but I didn't care. I know the truth, and it's no use. Nothing. Patricia hugged me. It's still useful, because now you know, and I know. And when we know what to do with it, we do. But at least now we know there's something to do. There's a lie to unmask. Mrs. Watson died 3 days later. I didn't go to the funeral. Couldn't. I stayed in the little room lying down, looking at the ceiling. The truth was inside me now, burning, screaming to get out, and I was going to make it come out. It didn't matter how long it took. A week after the midwife's death, I made a decision. I was going to Mr. Winters and throw the truth in his face. Patricia tried to hold me back. Savannah, he won't admit it. He'll deny it. You'll come out of there hurt again. But I didn't care. I needed to do this. I needed to look in his eyes and say, I know what you did. It wasn't going to change anything in practice, but it would change something inside me. It would give me back a piece of dignity. I went to his mansion one hot afternoon. My heart was racing, but I forced my legs to walk. I knocked on the iron gate. The old maid came to answer. She was the same one from 10 years ago, more wrinkled now. She recognized me and her eyes widened. "What do you want here?" My voice came out firm. "I want to speak with Mr. Winters. It's urgent." She hesitated, but ended up opening. "Wait here." I was left in the hallway. That house still smelled of mold and power. Mr. Winters appeared. He was older, hair completely white now, back a bit curved, but the look was the same. Cold, hard. He looked me up and down. "Savannah, what do you want?" I breathed deeply. "I know the truth. Mrs. Watson told me everything before she died. I know you lied. I know the problem was yours, not mine." I expected some reaction, fear, nervousness, anything, but he just laughed. A short, dry laugh, without humor. "So what?" He crossed his arms. "Mrs. Watson is dead. Can't confirm anything. And you think anyone will believe you? A washerwoman with no future against me? Mr. Harold Winters?" He took a step in my direction. "Listen well, girl. I did what I had to do to protect my name, and I would do it again. You're nothing, never were, and you can scream the truth to the four corners, and nobody will hear you, because I'm me and you're you." The anger I felt was so great my hands trembled. "You destroyed my life out of pride, out of cowardice. You didn't have the courage to admit you failed. You preferred to throw the blame on a 15-year-old girl. Doesn't that weigh on your conscience?" He stared at me without blinking. "Conscience is a luxury for the poor. I sleep very well every night and will continue sleeping. Now get out of my house before I call someone to remove you." I didn't leave immediately. I stood there, looking at him, searching for some sign of humanity, but there wasn't any. He was a void, a man who had chosen to protect his own image and had sacrificed another person without thinking twice. I went looking for remorse in a man who had no conscience. You cannot demand justice from a void. That's when I understood. My fight wasn't to make him confess. My fight was to tear down the lie he had built. He had no remorse, felt nothing. And it was at that moment I understood. He was never going to admit it. Never. He was going to take that lie to the grave, and I would have to live with it, or find another way to prove it. I left that mansion. My legs weren't shaky anymore. They were heavy, filled with lead. I sat on the curb outside, my head in my hands. But I wasn't crying. A cold, terrible clarity settled over me. It had been a mistake to go there expecting a man. I had been confronting a void. I had wanted shame. I had wanted remorse. He had none. And in that moment, I understood. You cannot ask a void for justice. You cannot make a void feel. My fight wasn't with him anymore. It couldn't be. My fight was with the lie itself. He was just a coward hiding behind it. I didn't just feel anger. I felt a cold, patient certainty. He would take his lie to the grave. I would spend the rest of my life digging it up for the whole world to see. I was so lost in this new cold resolve, I didn't even see the old maid approach. She looked around, made sure nobody was watching. "Girl, listen here." I raised my head. She spoke low, fast. "I believe you. I always believed. That morning when he returned you, I saw his face. He was ashamed, desperate. And after, over the years, I saw him destroy himself inside." She looked back again, nervous. "There are nights I hear him in the room, drunk, talking to his dead mother's photo. He cries, says, 'I'm not a man, Mother. I'm no good.' He suffers, yes. In his way, twisted, but suffers. That didn't console me. And why didn't you ever say anything? Why didn't you ever defend me?" She lowered her eyes. "Because I need this job. I'm old, have nobody, have nowhere to go. If I speak against him, he puts me on the street and I die of hunger. Sorry, girl, I'm a coward too." She stuck something in my hand. "A piece of bread. It's all I can give you." And went back inside running before anyone saw. I looked at the piece of bread in my hand. It was a crumb. It was nothing, but it was what I had. Crumbs of truth, crumbs of solidarity. It wasn't going to change the world, wasn't going to clean my name, but at least I knew now, more than ever, he wasn't making it up. The truth existed, was locked, hidden, but existed. And one day, somehow, it would come out, even if I didn't know how yet. Even if it took another 10, 20 years, one day it would come out, and on that day, Mr. Winters would pay. 3 days after I went to Mr. Winters' mansion, everything changed. It was night. I was in the little room trying to sleep, despite the hunger that pressed. They knocked on the door hard. I got up scared, thinking it was Mrs. Jenkins demanding something. I opened the door. 2 big men were there. I recognized both. They worked on Mr. Winters' lands. Thugs. My blood froze. They didn't enter. Just stood there, occupying all the door space, blocking the moonlight. The taller one, a guy named Brock, spoke. His voice was low but had weight. "Mr. Winters sent a message for you." I tried not to show fear. "What message?" The other one, fatter, crossed his arms. He had a scar on his face that you need to stop talking nonsense around. Stop inventing lies about him. Because if you don't stop, Brock completed. Accidents happen. Woman alone, working at the creek, can slip on the rock, can hit her head, can disappear, understand. My whole body went rigid. It wasn't just social rejection anymore. It was a death threat, a real threat. I tried to keep my voice firm, but it came out trembling. I didn't invent anything. I just told the truth. Brock leaned forward, his face almost glued to mine. His breath was of whiskey and cigarettes. "Mr. Winters' truth is the only one that matters. Yours is worth nothing. So forget what you think you know and stay quiet forever, or you'll regret it. The stakes have just changed completely. This is no longer just about reputation. It's about survival. Mr. Winters has shown he will protect his lie not just with words, but with violence. How can Savannah possibly fight a man who is willing to kill her to keep his secret?" They left. I closed the door with hands trembling so much I could barely turn the key. I leaned my back against the door and slid until I sat on the floor. The fear was so great I couldn't breathe properly. They had threatened to kill me. Not with those exact words, but the message was clear. If I continued talking, if I continued looking for the truth, I would disappear. Poor women disappear, and nobody asks, nobody investigates, nobody cares. I stayed all night awake. Every noise from outside made me jump. Would they come back? Would they get me sleeping? I didn't have a strong door, didn't have a good lock. If they wanted to come in, they'd come in easily. I thought about running, going to Patricia's house. But what if they were following me? What if I put her in danger too? I stayed there, curled up in a corner, hugging my knees, waiting for the sun to rise. When dawn broke, I was exhausted, but alive. I went to work at the creek like always, but each person who passed close made me tense. Each man who appeared at the water's edge, I looked with suspicion. Was it another thug? Would they throw me in the water and say it was an accident? I washed the clothes fast, barely scrubbing, just wanting to finish and get out of there. When I finished and gathered everything to return, I saw a man coming in my direction. It was Tyler Matthews, that young guy who had looked at me with pity on my wedding day. He had grown, become a man, but I still remembered him. He stopped in front of me. He had a purple eye, a busted lip, a cut on his eyebrow. Looked like he had fought. "Savannah." I looked at him confused. "What happened to you?" He cleaned the dry blood from the corner of his mouth. "I was at the bar last night. I heard Brock and the other thug talking. They were laughing, saying they had gone to scare you, saying you would learn to stay quiet, that if you didn't learn, they would teach you another way." The anger on his face was visible. I couldn't stand it. I said they were cowards to threaten a woman alone. They got up, called me outside. We fought. I got beat, I won't lie. They're big. But I hit back too. Hit a lot and warned, "If you touch one finger on her, you'll have to go through me first." I was speechless. Why had he done that? We barely knew each other. He continued lower. "I always knew you were telling the truth, Savannah, since that day. I saw Mr. Winters' face. I saw your face, and I always wanted to do something, but I was too much of a coward. My eyes filled with water. You didn't have to do that. Now they'll chase you too. Tyler shook his head. Let them try. I'm not afraid of Mr. Winters. My father already died. I don't owe him anything. I work on my own. Earn little, but earn honestly. He has no power over me. He looked deep in my eyes. And I'm not going to let anyone hurt you. Nobody. You've already suffered too much. Already paid for something you didn't do. Enough. He left before I could thank him. I stood there, holding the bundle of wet clothes, processing what had just happened. Someone had defended me. Someone had put their own body between me and danger. Someone believed in me enough to get beat for me. It was a strange feeling, good, but scary, because now I wasn't alone in the fight anymore, and that meant other people could get hurt because of me. Patricia, Tyler. And I didn't know if I could carry that weight too. One more thing had changed. The fear I felt was still there, but along with it there was something else. There was anger again. Anger that Mr. Winters thought he could have people killed and get away with it. Anger that he had so much power he could destroy whoever he wanted without consequence. And along with the anger, a decision. I wasn't going to stop, wasn't going to stay quiet, even with fear, even with danger, because if I stopped now, he won forever. And I had already lost 10 years. Wasn't going to lose the rest of my life, too. 2 years passed. Difficult years. Heavy. I worked every day afraid of being attacked. The thugs didn't come back, but I knew they were around. I saw them from afar, sometimes staring at me. It was a constant pressure, a weight that didn't leave. Patricia tried to cheer me up. Tyler showed up from time to make sure I was okay. But inside I was crumbling. The truth I knew was useless, was locked with me, and I was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of living. There was a day I couldn't take it anymore. It wasn't a special day. Nothing different had happened. I just woke up and thought, what for? Why continue? I was 27 years old, but looked like I was 50. My body hurt all the time. My hands were deformed from washing so much clothes. I had nothing. Had nobody except Patricia and Tyler. Had no future. Would die washing other people's dirty clothes, alone, carrying a lie nobody believed. Why wake up again tomorrow? Instead of going to work, I went to the creek. But I didn't go to the place where we wash clothes. I went further, where the creek is deeper, quieter. I sat at the edge, my feet in the cold water. It was late afternoon. The sun was going down. Orange, beautiful. Birds sang. Everything so calm. And me there, thinking it would be so easy. So easy to enter the water. Let it take me. Stop feeling pain. Stop carrying weight. Just stop. I stayed there I don't know how long. An hour, 2, maybe, looking at the water, imagining what it would be like. Fast, slow, would it hurt, or would it be like sleeping? Sleeping forever, without nightmares, without waking up every day in the same misery. My mind was empty and full at the same time. Empty of hope, full of tiredness. And I began to lean forward slowly when I heard a voice behind me. Savannah. It was Tyler. I didn't turn, didn't say anything. He sat next to me, didn't ask what I was doing, didn't make drama, just stayed there in silence. We stayed like that about 10 minutes, just the sound of water running, of birds, of wind in the leaves. Then he spoke, low voice. I looked for you at the creek, where you wash clothes. Mrs. Patricia said you didn't show up to work today. She's worried. I got worried too. Pause. Then I thought, where does Savannah go when she wants to be alone? And I remembered this place. I don't want to be alone, I said. The voice came out breaking. I want to stop suffering. Tyler didn't answer right away. He picked up a little rock and threw it in the water. We saw it sink. I know it hurts, Savannah. I see you every day carrying that weight, and I wish I could take it from you, but I can't. Nobody can. Only you. He breathed deeply. But I can tell you one thing. If you give up today, he wins. Mr. Winters wins. He destroyed your life and gets away with it. You're going to give him that pleasure? Tyler was right. At her lowest point, he gave Savannah the one thing she'd lost, a reason to fight. Survival itself now becomes her revenge. She isn't just living for herself anymore, she's living to watch him fall. But the path to that revenge is about to take another shocking, personal turn. Dying is an easy way out. But Tyler was right. If I died, he won. Survival itself became my revenge. I decided then I would not give him the satisfaction of my defeat. I finally looked at him. His eyes were serious, firm. He already won, Tyler. He won a long time ago. Tyler shook his head. No, he only wins if you die believing the lie. But you don't believe it. You know the truth. And as long as you have that truth alive inside you, he hasn't won. Not completely. He held my hand. His hand was rough, calloused, like mine, hand of someone who works hard. Stay, Savannah. Stay alive, because one day, I don't know when, but one day the truth will come out, and on that day you need to be here to see it. I cried. I cried so much I thought I would never stop, and Tyler held me, hugged me tight, let me wet his shirt, didn't say anything more, just held me, and slowly, very slowly, something inside me came back. It wasn't hope yet. It was stubbornness, stubborn anger. I wasn't going to give Mr. Winters the pleasure of seeing me dead. Wasn't going to let him sleep peacefully, knowing he destroyed me completely. If I was going to suffer, let it be suffering, but fighting, not giving up. We stayed there until it got dark. When I got up, my legs were shaky. Tyler held me by the arm. Come, I'll take you home. On the way, he said something that stayed in my head. You know, Savannah, I've always liked you. Since that wedding day, I saw you there so small, so scared, and I wanted to do something, but I didn't. I was a coward, and I've regretted it every day since then. I looked at him surprised. Why are you telling me this now? Because I don't want more regrets. I want you to know there's someone who sees you, who really sees you, not the returned girl, not the poor washerwoman, just Savannah, the woman who fights, the strong woman, the woman who deserves to be happy. He stopped in front of my little room. I'm not asking for anything. Not now. You already have too much weight. I just wanted you to know. You're not alone. Never will be again. As long as I'm alive, you have someone on your side. I entered the little room that night with a strange feeling. I still had fear, still had pain, still had anger. But there was something else too. There was a small thread of something I hadn't felt in a long time. It was fragile, could break easily, but it was there. And that thread made me sleep that night without dreaming of death. Made me wake up the next day and go to work. Made me continue. Because if Tyler and Patricia believed I could win, maybe I could. Maybe. About 2 years later, someone knocked on my little room door early in the morning. It was a girl I didn't know, daughter of a neighbor of my father's. Miss, your father is very sick, is asking for you. My first impulse was to say no, say I didn't have a father, that he had expelled me, disowned me, but the girl was there waiting and something inside me, I don't know if it was kindness or just curiosity, made me go. The house where my father lived was small, dirty, full of things thrown around. My siblings had left Bloomfield, nobody knew where. He had been alone for years. I entered his room. The smell was terrible. Smell of sickness, of urine, of people who don't take care of themselves. He was lying in an old bed, so thin he looked like a skeleton, yellow skin, sunken eyes. When he saw me, he tried to sit up, couldn't. Savannah, you came. I stood at the door. Didn't get close. The girl said you were calling me. I'm here. What do you want? My voice came out hard, cold. He started to cry. Tears running on the yellow face, disappearing in the wrinkles. Daughter, daughter, I. He tried to extend his hand to me. I didn't take it. I stayed where I was, arms crossed. I was wrong. I did the wrong thing. His voice barely came out. He coughed between words. Forgive this, Father. Something in me broke. But it wasn't pity. It was anger. Anger that he only now, almost dying, wanted forgiveness. Where was he when I needed him? When I got beat by him in the street? When I was expelled? When I was starving? You sold me, Dad. Sold me to pay a debt. And when Mr. Winters returned me lying, you believed him. Not me, your own daughter. You beat me, called me a whore, threw me away like trash. My voice trembled, but I continued. And now you want forgiveness? Now that you're dying? He cried more, babbled things I didn't understand. Patricia arrived. She had stayed waiting outside, but came in when she heard me talking loudly. Savannah, come, breathe a little. She pulled me outside the room. In the hallway, she hugged me. I know it hurts, but you'll regret it if you don't let him speak. This will stay stuck in you for the rest of your life. I breathed deeply. I don't know if I can forgive him, Patricia. I don't know if he deserves it. It's not about him deserving, it's about you freeing yourself. She held my face. You carried the weight of Mr. Winters' lie for years. Don't carry the weight of hatred for your father, too. Let it go, even if just so you can be lighter. I went back to the room, sat on the edge of the bed. My father looked at me. I always knew you were telling the truth. That hit me by surprise. What? He coughed, spit blood on a cloth. I knew, but I was afraid of Mr. Winters. He would charge the debt again, would take everything. I was in shock. He knew. He knew and still expelled me. Did you hear that? This is the ultimate betrayal. It wasn't ignorance. It was a conscious, cowardly choice. The slap in the street was painful, but this confession, this is a wound to the soul. How does she possibly find forgiveness for a father who knowingly sacrificed her? Did you hear that? He knew. He knew from the very beginning. That pain, it was 1,000 times worse than the beating in the street. He knowingly sacrificed me. Cowardice. It can turn a father into a monster. So you sacrificed me to save your own skin. Is that it? He closed his eyes. More tears. It was him or you, and I chose wrong. God forgive me. I chose wrong. The anger was so much I wanted to scream, but he was so weak, so finished. Screaming wasn't going to change anything, wasn't going to give back my 10 years, wasn't going to heal my wounds, would just satisfy my anger. And I was tired of anger. I stayed taking care of him for 3 days, not because I wanted to, but because there was nobody else, and because deep down, he was my father. He had been a horrible father, coward, weak, but he was my father. I cleaned him, gave water, medicine that didn't work anymore. He tried to talk, ask for forgiveness again. I didn't answer, just did the work. On the 3rd day, he died early in the morning, stopped breathing while he slept. I was sitting in a chair next to him. I saw his chest go up and down and stop. I felt nothing, not sadness, not relief, just emptiness. I called the gravedigger. The funeral was on a day of light rain. Few people went. Me, Patricia, Tyler, some neighbors. The priest said some generic things. They threw dirt. Done. I went back to his house to see if there was anything of value. There was almost nothing. Old clothes, empty whiskey bottles, a box with papers. I opened the box and found a letter with my name. The handwriting was shaky, could barely read, but it was his, dated about 5 years ago. Savannah, my daughter, if you're reading this, I've already died and died without having the courage to give you this letter in person. I always knew you were innocent. Always. But Mr. Saching Vedi 5, Winters had power over me. Debt, fear, shame. I chose to save myself and destroy you. There's no forgiveness for this. I know, but I need you to know. I carried this guilt every day. Every day I killed myself little by little with whiskey because I couldn't stand to look at myself in the mirror. Forgive this coward father. Forgive if you can your father, Carl. I sat on the floor with the letter in my hand. I cried. Not for him, for me, for the years I lost, for the one 5-year-old girl who was sold, for the injustice of everything. But I also felt something come out from inside me. A small weight, but it came out. He had asked for forgiveness in his twisted way, late, coward, but he had, and I decided there on that dirty floor. I forgave, not because he deserved it, but because I deserved not to carry more hatred. Forgiveness. It wasn't a gift for him. It was a gift for me. I had carried the weight of that lie for decades. I refused to carry the weight of hating my father, too. I choked. I deserved to be light. I tore the letter, threw it away, and left that house. Never went back. A few more years passed. I was 33 when the news arrived. Mr. Winters had died. Heart attack, they said. He fell in his mansion alone. The maid found him in the morning, dead. When Patricia told me, I felt nothing, not relief, not satisfaction. It was too late. He had died without paying, without admitting, without suffering enough. The truth would die with him, buried together in the expensive coffin his family would buy. The wake was at church. Lots of important people from town, politicians, landowners, businessmen, everyone in black crying, speaking well of him. What an upright man, what a loss for Bloomfield. I went, stayed at the back of the church, hidden behind a column. I needed to see him dead with my own eyes, needed to be sure he wasn't going to do more harm. The coffin was open. He was there white, quiet, hands crossed on his chest, finally silent, finally without being able to lie. That's when she entered. A woman about 40-something years old, black dress, dark hair tied up, hard expression. She entered through the side door, not the main one. She passed right by the guests without asking permission, went straight to the coffin. She stood looking at the body. Everyone stopped talking, looked at her. Who was that woman? Nobody knew. She looked at the dead Mr. Winters and spit. She actually spit on his face. What an entrance. Just when we thought the story was over, a new character emerges from the shadows, literally spitting on the grave of this town's saint. This one act of defiance is about to blow the case wide open. Who is this woman, and what secrets does she hold? The priest took a step forward, shocked. Madam. The woman turned to the crowd. Her voice was loud, firm, full of anger. My name is Miranda. I'm this man's daughter, bastard daughter. He never had the courage to acknowledge. He had an affair with my mother for over 20 years, fathered me, paid hidden child support so nobody would know. He visited me at dawn, as if I were shameful. And now that he died, I came to get what's mine. I came to get recognition, inheritance, justice. She looked at Mr. Winters' relatives, who were pale. And nobody here is going to stop me. The wake turned to chaos. People whispering loudly, some leaving scandalized, others staying to see the confusion. Mr. Winters' nephews, who were going to inherit everything, surrounded Miranda. This is a lie. He didn't have a daughter. Miranda opened a big bag she was carrying and took out papers. I have receipts signed by him. Years of child support. I have letters. I even have a photo of him with my mother. Do you want to see? Or do you want me to show everyone here the kind of man he was? The nephews went silent. Miranda put the papers away. That's what I thought. She left the church with her head held high. I left after her. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. I caught up with her on the street. Miranda. She turned and stared at me suspicious. Who are you? I breathed deeply. My name is Savannah. I married him when I was 15 years old. He returned me the next day, saying I wasn't a virgin. A lie. He lied to the whole town and destroyed my life. Her eyes changed from suspicion to recognition. You're the girl, he. I nodded. Miranda looked at me differently now. Not with pity, with shared anger. So he did that to you too. Destroyed you to protect himself. She squeezed the papers in her hand. My mother told me before she died. She said he was afraid of not being man enough, that he had problems, that there were nights he couldn't even with her. But he had so much pride he preferred to lie, destroy, pay for silence, anything but admit weakness. That confirmed everything the midwife had said, everything I knew deep down. I have proof, Miranda said. I have documents that can prove who he was. And you You have the story, the living witness of what he did. She looked at me directly. We could unite, go to court. The two cases together are stronger than separate. I want inheritance. You want what? I thought quickly. What did I want? Money? Yes, I needed it. But it wasn't just that. I want my name clean. I want the town to know I didn't lie, that he lied. I want justice. Miranda extended her hand. Then let's look for it together. We shook hands. Two women destroyed by the same man. One ignored all her life, the other slandered, now united against his legacy. Miranda arranged to meet me 2 days later at her house. She was going to gather everything she had. I was going to gather my story, my witnesses. Patricia, the old maid, if she agreed to speak, we were going to put together a case. We're going to go to court, and even if it took years, we were going to win, because now we weren't alone anymore. When I returned to my little room that night, Tyler was waiting. He had heard about the scandal at the wake. Is it true? A daughter of his appeared? I told everything. He listened in silence. When I finished, he smiled. A small smile, but real. Savannah, this is your chance. The chance you waited 18 years for. Don't let it pass. He held my hands. And I'll be by your side in everything until the end. I looked at him. This man who was always there, always believed. And for the first time, I let him into my heart. Not love yet, but the possibility of love. Someday. Miranda and I went to a lawyer in Bloomfield, a younger man than we expected, recently graduated with that shine of someone who still believes in justice. We told everything, showed her documents, told my story. He listened to everything, taking notes. When we finished, he breathed deeply. Look, I'll be honest. It's a difficult case, very difficult, Mr. Winter's family has money, expensive lawyers, and he's dead, can't defend himself. But you have something strong, a pattern. He did this more than once, with more than one woman. If we can prove this, we have a chance. He asked for a month to investigate, look for other victims, put the case together. It was the longest month of my life. Each day I woke up thinking, will it work? Will someone else appear? Miranda showed up every week at my house. We talked. At first it was just about the case. But gradually we became something like friends. She was angry at her father, like I was. She had been rejected all her life like me. We understood each other in a strange way, but real. The lawyer came back with news. He had found a woman, a 50-year-old lady who lived in a neighboring town. Mr. Winters had returned her 25 years ago with the same excuse. She accepted to testify with shame, with fear, but accepted. Now we have 3 women, the lawyer said, 3 equal cases. This isn't coincidence, it's systematic behavior. We're going to file a lawsuit for moral damages against his estate. If we win, you receive compensation from the inheritance. We filed the lawsuit at the beginning of the next year. The process was slow, very slow. Postponed hearings, lost paperwork. Mr. Winter's family hired 3 lawyers. They tried everything. Said Miranda was lying about being his daughter. Blood test proved she wasn't lying. Said I was an opportunist. Witnesses proved my story. Said the other woman was being paid to lie. She wasn't. But they kept postponing, stalling, trying to tire us out, trying to make us give up. There were moments I wanted to give up, really. Sit in the courthouse, waiting hours for the hearing to be postponed again, answer the same humiliating questions from their lawyers. Did you have a boyfriend before? Did you provoke Mr. Winters in some way? How do we know you're not making everything up for money? Each question was a stab, but Patricia went with me, Tyler went with me, Miranda went. We took turns, so nobody would be alone, and I continued, one step at a time. The fight dragged on. A year passed, then 2, then 3, then 4. By the time the 5th year of the process began, I was 38 years old. I had started at 33, and it had been 5 years of fighting, of going up and down to the city, of missing work and earning less, of spending money I didn't have on paper, on transportation. There was a time I thought, it's not worth it, it's too much sacrifice. But then I remembered, I spent over 20 years carrying a lie. 5 years of fighting is nothing compared to that. 5 years to clean my name is worth it. Worth every second. In the 4th year, things started moving faster. Mr. Winter's family made a proposal. They would pay an amount for us to drop the lawsuit and sign a confidentiality agreement. Never talk about the case again. Miranda almost accepted. It was money in hand, fast. But I said no. It's not just about money, Miranda. It's about truth. If we sign a confidentiality agreement, his lie stays standing. Nobody will ever know I was right. I don't accept. Miranda looked at me. Are you sure? It could take more years. We might lose. I looked in her eyes. I waited 20 years. I can wait a little longer. In the 5th year, finally, the judge scheduled the sentence. We sat in the courthouse room. Me, Miranda, Patricia, Tyler, the other woman who testified. On the other side, Mr. Winter's nephews with the lawyers. The judge entered. Everyone stood up. He sat, opened the folder, started reading. My heart was beating so hard I thought I would faint. Tyler held my hand. Patricia, the other. I squeezed both and heard the judge speak. Considering the evidence presented, considering the testimony of multiple witnesses, considering the proven pattern of behavior, considering that the plaintiff Savannah was publicly slandered without any proof, I recognize the injustice committed. I recognize the damage caused. I condemn the estate of the late Mr. Winters to payment of compensation for moral damages in the amount of, he said. Number, a big number, a lot of money, but I barely heard it. I only heard one word. Recognize. After 24 long years, that one word is all that matters. Recognize. It's not about the money. It's about getting her name back. It's about that one 5-year-old girl in the dirt, finally being told, "We believe you. This is justice." He recognized me. Justice recognized. I was right. I always was. And finally, someone with power was saying this out loud. For a moment, I wasn't in the courtroom. I was 15 again, kneeling in the dirt, my father's hand raised, the whole town staring. I felt the shame, the blood in my mouth. Then, I felt the judge's word, recognize, like a cool, clean cloth wiping the filth away. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about Mr. Winters. It was about her, that one 5-year-old girl I had left behind in the street. I finally had the right to go back, pick her up and tell her, "It's over. We can go home." The money didn't matter. What I needed to hear, after 24 years, was that one word, recognize. All those years, I had left that one 5-year-old girl alone on that dirt road. In that moment, I could finally go back, take her by the hand, and tell her, "We won, child. It's over. We can go home." The weight I had carried for 24 years, not just his lie, but my father's betrayal, the town's scorn, it didn't just break, it evaporated. I was light. For the first time in my life, I was completely and totally light. I broke down. I cried nonstop. Patricia and Tyler held me. Miranda was crying too. The other woman cried. It was crying from relief, from victory, from justice finally done. Mr. Winter's nephews left with closed faces. They were going to have to pay, were going to have to take money from their precious inheritance to give to me, to pay for what their uncle did. And his name, the precious name of Mr. Winters, was dirty. Now everyone would know. The sentence was public. There was no way to hide. He had been exposed late, but he had been. The victory in court was a public one, and the news spread through Bloomfield like fire. The change was not immediate, but it was real. People who had looked through me for 24 years suddenly found their voices. Mrs. Johnson, the one who had whispered and covered her mouth the day my father beat me, stopped me on the street. "Savannah," she said, her eyes on the ground. We just didn't know. We're so sorry." I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't, but I nodded. I saw other women pointing at Mr. Winter's grandnephews, whispering about the liar's blood. The town's judgment, which had been my prison, had now turned on his legacy. To walk down the main street and have people nod at me, to hear a simple, "Good morning, Savannah," felt like a different kind of victory. They had finally given me back my name. The money arrived 6 months later. It wasn't all at once. It was in installments. But it was more than I had seen in my entire life. I was 39 years old, 24 years after being expelled from home. I held that first check in my hand and didn't believe it was real. I showed Patricia. She laughed. That free laugh of hers. "Now, yes, girl. Now you can truly start over." And it was true. For the first time in my life, I had options, had choice, wasn't trapped in misery, forced to accept crumbs. I could choose. The first thing I did was go to a jewelry store. I asked to make a ring like my mother had. I couldn't recover the original. My father had sold it, and it was melted down. But I described it to the jeweler. Simple gold ring with a little flower engraved. He made it exactly. When it was ready, I held it carefully. It wasn't her ring, but it was her memory, rebuilt by my hands. I kept it in a little box. Sometimes I open it just to look, to remember that the past doesn't come back, but we can build new things on top. The second thing was to buy a small piece of land, but in a good place in Bloomfield, and build a laundromat. Not a makeshift business, not. A real laundromat, with brick walls, machines bought, used, but working. Big washing tubs, covered clothesline. I put a sign in front. Savannah's Laundry, my name big for everyone to see. Patricia came to work with me. We hired 2 more women. Paid right, treated well. The laundromat started slowly, but grew. People started trusting. Savannah is hardworking, is honest. Honest. Finally, someone was using that word for me. Tyler showed up one afternoon at the laundromat. He had a bouquet of wildflowers in his hand. Simple flowers, nothing fancy. He was nervous. "Savannah, can I talk to you?" We went outside. He held my hands. "I waited many years. Waited for you to sort out your life. Waited for you to heal your wounds. I don't want to wait anymore. Will you marry me?" I looked at him. This man who was always there, who protected me, who believed, who never gave up. I wasn't sure if it was love, but it was something good, something solid, and I deserved something good. "Yes, I'll marry." We married simply. Just us, Patricia, Miranda, the priest, without a big party. But it was happy, it was real, it was my choice. This time nobody ordered, nobody sold, nobody forced. I wanted to, and that made all the difference. Tyler was good, was a partner. We didn't have movie passion, no. We had partnership, respect, affection that grew slowly. And for me, who had lived so long without anything, that was more than enough. It was happiness. We bought a small house, 2 rooms, backyard. We painted together, planted some plants, made it ours. I woke up every day in that house, in my bed, and didn't believe it. It was mine. My house, my business, my husband, my life built by me. Nobody gave it to me. I conquered every brick, every plant, every day of peace. I conquered fighting, and when I thought about it, I knew it had been worth it. All the suffering, all the fighting had been worth it. The laundromat grew more. In the following years, we expanded, bought better machines, hired more people, became a reference in Bloomfield. Go to Savannah's. She's good. She doesn't cheat. I didn't get rich, no, but I became comfortable. I paid the bills, ate well, slept peacefully. And that was more than I dreamed when I was washing clothes on the rock at the creek, with my hands bleeding. It was more than I thought I deserved when everyone called me a liar. It was victory, real victory. Tyler died about 10 years ago. Heart too. It was quick, hurt a lot. But I had more than 30 good years with him. 30 years of companionship, of laughter, of shared life. He never gave me children. My body couldn't anymore after so much suffering. But he gave me love, gave me presence, gave me the certainty that I was worthy of being loved, and that was enough. I keep his wedding band in a little box along with my mother's ring. My 2 precious memories. At 80, I find peace on my porch, after having passed on the laundromat to young women who needed an opportunity, just like I once did. I often tell those who visit, this journey was long and painful. There was a time I almost gave up, but I didn't give up, and in the end, I won. My name and my conscience are clean. A lie dominated 24 years of my life, but it couldn't destroy the last 40 years that I built for myself. I know who I am. Every second of the fight to get here was completely worth it. Every life is a story worth listening to. If you feel inspired by this journey and want to discover more meaningful stories, please subscribe to the channel to join us.